After safely arriving on scene of a car fire, immediately size up the critical factors and look for any safety issues. If any evidence exists of people being trapped inside the vehicle or directly exposed to the vehicle, make a fast, aggressive attack to remove endangered victims and treat the injured. If no victims are present, make a controlled approach to the vehicle at a 45-degree angle from either the front or rear of the vehicle. Move towards the vehicle using the distance provided by the hose stream to begin cooling off the vehicle. The first water application should wash out any spillage under the vehicle. In doing so, the water will also deflect off the ground upward and begin cooling the gas tank and the rest of the vehicle. Remember to control runoff if necessary to prevent environmental damage or running fuel fire. Avoid sticking your head inside the burning vehicle, which not only increases your exposure to heat and superheated gases, but also makes you more prone to injury. When safe to do so, try pulling the release cables for the hood and trunk compartments from inside the vehicle. If the hood release cable is no longer functioning or too damaged to locate, the Halligan tool can be used to gain access to the engine compartment. Most firefighters are familiar with using the Halligan to bend a portion of the hood to put water on the fire and create steam conversion. Breaking out vehicle headlights provides very limited access to cool the engine compartment and is rarely a tactic needed to be used in fighting vehicle fires. Breaking out the grille of the vehicle with a sledgehammer or Halligan should give access to pull the latch release cable with a gloved hand, the fork end of the Halligan, or a pair of pliers. If unable to open the hood due to release cable being burned through or inability to locate the cable, evaluate the need to use the circular saw to cut the hood. This is a tactic that will not be necessary on all vehicle fires, but should be thought of as an additional tool to use when having difficulties opening the hood to completely extinguish the fire. Discretion must be used by the engine company in comparing the secondary damage to the vehicle versus the need to make full access to the engine compartment. Use the location of the headlights meeting the frame of the body and the middle of the hood to locate the latch. Make a TP-style cut large enough to encompass the latch and deep enough to completely cut the hood. If during cut evolution the saw begins to bind, remove blade from vehicle and allow saw to regain full RPMs. If saw is still binding, reposition body using a wide base and evaluate hand positioning. Allow the saw to do the work. Binding of the saw is normally caused by the operator, not the saw. Upon completion of the cut, bury the saw into the hood to stop the blade. Open the hood, extinguish the fire, and remember to cut a section of the ground battery cable. Moving to the rear compartment of the vehicle, remember that some vehicles have access to the trunk through the passenger compartment. Check to see if the seats inside the passenger compartment fold down to give access to the trunk space. Access to the rear compartment in sport utility vehicles or vehicles with a large rear window can be gained by breaking the rear window glass. The fork end or adze end of the Halligan can be used on the side of the trunk to create a space big enough to spray water into the rear compartment if exposed to fire. Breaking out the taillights can provide additional access to cool the trunk area if a fire is present. Access to the trunk is sometimes possible by busting the lock and using a flathead screwdriver in a turning motion to pop open the trunk. Using the circular saw to cut the trunk might only be necessary on certain fires, for example, abandoned vehicles or suspicious fires. Cutting the trunk should be accomplished by making a horizontal cut across the length of the trunk around the middle of the trunk. If unexposed to fire, this can be done by making one cut while moving around the back bumper. If exposed to fire, the cut can be made from the side of the vehicle by splitting the trunk in half. This will protect the saw operator from being in the danger zone directly behind the vehicle. After completing the cut, bury the saw blade into the vehicle and extinguish the remaining fire in the rear compartment. Make sure to inspect the saw upon completion of task for damage to blade, refuel the saw, and return the saw to a ready state for future use.